So, obviously, if you were paying attention to my arms and hands while I was playing, you'll have noticed that the technical goal in question here is the management of this constant crossing of the left hand over the right hand, which you can see playing out in the notation throughout this whole piece in the left hand with this alternation of bass and treble clefs. The right hand, meanwhile, is playing this rotating back and forth accompaniment that we'll be working to keep nice and mellow and consistent while all of this movement is going on. We'll talk about all of this in detail in a moment, so let's first get our preliminaries out of the way and look at the form. This piece is in 4/4, has a very moderate speed of andante, and has an opening dynamic of piano. You'll notice that we have very few dynamics in this piece, just this one at the beginning, another of the same type at measure 17, and then a couple of hairpins in measure 15 and measure 16. That second piano dynamic corresponds to an important point in the form that's worth pointing out. This is the repetition of the first A section. You can see we have a perfect repetition of the material between measures 1 and 7 and measures 17 and 23. This is one of those large-scale repetitions that's really worth noticing because it effectively shears down a huge amount of what it looks like you have to learn in this piece and allows you to mentally calibrate yourself to work on the areas that actually require extra attention. Fortunately, the challenges in this piece are very clear-cut, and once you overcome learning the big, overriding technical hurdle, there's only one real spot that might give you some grief. And of course, we'll be going over that in detail as well. Speaking of, let's jump in. Okay, so with that said, let's quickly cover what's happening in the right hand before we talk about the left hand crossing. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that we have two sets of fingering numbers here at the beginning. The numbers in parentheses are actually the ones marked in the original publication, meaning that they are very possibly Streabbog's, and the ones without parentheses are my own. Now, this is one of the relatively few times that I really disagree with the composer's choice of fingering to the degree at which I'm actually willing to input my own edited fingering as part of the score as the quote-unquote main fingering, not in parentheses. Now, look, we make changes to the fingering of passages all the time based on our preferences and physical qualities. But they're usually personal changes that don't get written into the edited manuscripts. They get added later by you or by your teacher if your teacher feels that they are more appropriate in a lesson type setting. But here I actually think that using 5 and 3 and 5 and 4 is more natural feeling than using 4-2 and 4-3. So that is what I am recommending in the score. Okay, so all of that out of the way. What we want is a nice, gentle, and consistent rotating texture. So really aim to avoid anything hard and heavy. But this is supposed to be our background. And you'll probably find that you have more control with this if you think about using a bit more wrist motion and a bit less finger motion. If you keep your fingers pretty much attached to the keys, this shouldn't be too hard to achieve. It's hard to get finger press power when your fingers are attached to the keys. You kind of have to use a little bit more wrist motion. So, that out of the way, let's talk about the crossing. Now watch as I play the first phrase again. You'll be using 5 and 2 pretty much for all of this. That is hitting the bottom with 5 and hitting the upper notes with 2. And the key here is, as I said earlier, to know where you're going by knowing the notes. And then by making sure you're keeping that arm moving. Let me play it again. Pay attention to how, as soon as I play the bottom note, my arm is already in motion and on its way to the top. My left hand is making this big arcing motion each time. almost bouncing off of the bottom note to propel itself into the air to cross over to the high note, which I'm also bouncing off of, giving a nice sharp strike to make it ring. You'll notice these little partial triangles above those treble clef notes. They look like traditional accents but are at the wrong angle. We sometimes call these marcatissimos in a traditional sort of Italian alteration of the word marcato to make it more. They're telling us to strike harder to get that nice ringing tone. Thanks for watching this lesson from Liberty Park Music. If you enjoyed this lesson and learned something from it, do us a favor, hit that like button. And if you really liked it, share it around. Let your friends and family check it out too. If you want to find more lessons like this or explore other piano-related topics, please come visit us at libertyparkmusic.com. We have full piano courses ranging from beginner to more advanced levels, and everything is online and streaming 24/7 so that you can design your music learning around your schedule and learn in the comfort of your own home from a talented roster of professional teachers and musicians. Come check us out.